right. Here we go on a Halloween morning, 2021 in Las Vegas. I just had a mask on. I took it off. I should have kept it on. We have some haunted spirits going on with the radio right now. Anyways, just after 8 o'clock, I'm Brian Feldman, and this is Out of Line. We are here same time every Sunday morning on Fox Sports Radio, 98.9 FM and 1340 AM flagship of the Vegas Golden Knights. We are coming to you live from the Wisden. Oh, we don't play it now because that comes after. But anyways, it's also known as Spencer Studio. It's in Las Vegas, and it's located basically at the 95 and Jones Boulevard. We are here because until further notice, we have been booted out of the Fox Sports Residential Bancorp studios due to COVID protocol. One day that will end. I think they're working on something soon, Spence. When everyone's vaccinated, they'll let everyone back in, but I think they're waiting for every single person to get that done. But joining me on the show is social media director, Spencer The Wiz Ostrovsky.
Nobody beats the Wiz. Nobody beats the Wiz.
That's right. The Wiz has his own theme music. And producing today's show, social distancing back in the Fox Sports Residential Bancorp studio producer, Chris Magnum Chapman, who aside from producing a number of shows on Lotus Broadcasting, he is also the locker room reporter for the Vegas Golden Knights radio network and the home pre-game show host for UNLV football on our sister station, ESPN The Leader. This show is also streaming on the LV Sports Network. You can watch the show on Facebook Live as well. The page is called Out of Line. That's OUTTALINE, thanks to StreamYard. And you can follow the show on Instagram and Twitter. The handle is at OutofLineFoxLV. Since we are live, your calls and questions are welcome. The Fox Sports Residential Bancorp studio line, 702-876-1340.
Hi, this is Bubby, and it's time for What's on Tap.
What's on Tap brought to you by title sponsor Residential Bancorp. Whether purchasing a new home or refinancing the home you currently own, Residential Bancorp is the company you turn to for all your home financing needs. Residential Bancorp, funding America one neighborhood at a time, now offering $2,500 free to everyone and anyone who qualifies for a home purchase loan in the state of Nevada. Call 702-964-5720 for more details. On Tap, the Vegas Golden Knights have won 3 straight after losing 4 of their first 5. UNLV lost in Reno and remains winless under Marcus Arroyo. More upsets in college football. The 2021 World Series might be won by a team that was under 500 in August. As late as August. It's crazy. We'll talk about that. And the NFC West leading Las Vegas Raiders, who are on a bye week, but coming off 2 straight wins with an interim head coach and an ousted coach. That'll be part of the subject matter today. And not a lot of marquee matchups this week in the NFL, but there are a couple worth talking about. Probably the biggest matchup's already been played, and that was Thursday night. And the NBA's number 1 draft pick made his NBA debut last night. How was it? Well, Anthony Bennett knows. He had a similar debut. You know who he is? We'll talk about that as well. Listen, that's what's on tap. If you are looking to buy a home or to refinance the home you currently own, choose a company you can trust, Residential Bancorp. Funding America one neighborhood at a time. And right now, Residential Bancorp is offering Nevada home buyers $2,500 toward closing costs, absolutely free for anyone and everyone who qualifies for any home loan purchase program in the state of Nevada. Call 702-964-5720 for details. And Spence, you're back, man. It's been a couple of weeks. You had COVID a few weeks ago, on vacation last week, spent some time with the family, and you're back, man. How you feeling?
Well, I'm a little tired right now, but no, I'm doing good. It's always great to be on the radio with you.
On the radio and on video, and I had a costume on when I first started, but I couldn't see through the damn thing, so I got rid of it. I figured Facebook viewers, man, I'd do them a favor by putting a mask on today, but not going to happen. Listen, the Vegas Golden Knights, last week we had David Shane on the show to talk about the Knights and kind of what was going on and why they started the season stuck in the mud a little bit. They've kind of turned things around, and we'll talk about that right now.
Hockey players, as you know, are warriors. They don't give up. They come to play every game.
It's
It's time for Nightcap, a cupful of the Vegas Golden Knights. From highlights to interviews to special events, the puck starts here.
Is finally moving in the right direction for the Vegas Golden Knights, and Magnum back in the studio joining me on the show. I've been covering these guys since they joined the National Hockey League in the 2017-2018 season. There was a lot of concern, and maybe that's a little bit overstated. I guess not a lot of concern. Let's say some concern about the start the team had this year. Some big-time changes made in the offseason. As we all know, Marc-Andre Fleury, now a Chicago Blackhawk. Things not going very well for Marc-Andre in Chicago. Really feel bad about that. I hope things get turned around, but that team, they look like a dumpster fire, and he's not helping the matter any between the pipes. And a matter of fact, he's sat a few games on the bench now, but that's not the issue. The issue has been the Vegas Golden Knights. They have been plagued with the injury bug earlier in this season, unlike they have in their previous four initial seasons. And that's been a concern, but somehow they've righted this ship. Pete DeBoer switching up lines, changing things, and now they've won 3 straight games. Chris, nice turnaround. What do you attribute it to?
Well, I think the big difference is that this team defensively, I think, is playing a lot better. Even in the Islanders game, they played pretty well defensively. Just the Islanders are a really good team, and they have the ability to just completely take your offense away. Sorokin was really good in that game for the Islanders and getting the shutout. But, the thing is, I think they've cut down on their giveaways. They seem to have found some consistency. And, they've gotten a couple guys back from Mark returned, then he left, unfortunately. We're not sure. Will Carrier's provided a spark for them, being bumped up to the first line, and they got Alec Martinez back in Dallas. So, look, the reality is this team, and I attribute it to Jonathan Marchessault, because I believe, look, he's obviously not Mark Stone. He's not Max Pacioretty, but he is the heart and soul of this team. And for 5 seasons now, when this team has needed a pickup or a lift, it's been number 81 who's provided it. Look, they were dead in Dallas. It would have been very easy for them to pack it in, given the situation with the travel, the second night of a back-to-back. They were, I don't know how many people actually know what transpired on Wednesday, but they played in Colorado on Tuesday night. And generally what happens is you'll leave the town or the city right after your game. And if you've ever been to Denver, you know that the airport is like an hour outside of downtown Denver. So they play the Avalanche on Tuesday night. They get on the bus. They go to the airport. They get on the plane. The plane heads down the taxiway and turns around and heads back to the gate. Now, we don't know. I have not been told why they returned. I believe it has something to do with weather in the Dallas area at the time. They had to go back to the hotel and spend the night in Denver. They got up Wednesday morning and flew to Dallas the day of the game. They didn't get to the arena until like 2 hours before they were supposed to start getting ready for the game. So they were blown out in the first half of that game, at least in terms of shots. And I think, the Stars really looked like the better team. It would have been really easy for them to pack it in. They were down a goal, and they pulled Laurent Brossoit. And who is it that comes up with the big goal to turn that game around? Jonathan Marchessault, as usual. That is what he is. He's not going to get the headlines, but he is the guy who makes this team go. And when they needed that big goal on Wednesday night in Dallas, it was Jonathan Marchessault who provided it. Look, Friday night, they played well in spurts. They allowed the Ducks back into the game in the third period. The Golden Knights probably should have slammed the door when it was 4-1. But, Anaheim's a young team, and they have a lot of kids who they want to win, and a lot of kids who aren't used to losing. So when you have that winning mentality, it transfers. That was 2 nights in a row that the Ducks came from 3 goals down to get a game into overtime. That's impressive for a young team that, well, quite frankly, isn't very good. But I think for Vegas, what's really changed is they've cut down on their turnovers and the giveaways, and I think they've shored up a bit defensively. If people remember Friday night, the second goal that Dallas scored, I think it was the Zegras goal, or the Ducks scored it. It was a Zegras goal. The Golden Knights dominated an offensive possession, and it was a big rebound that set the Ducks off on that little run to get the second goal of the night. But look, I mean, they have a big road trip coming up. They're going to be in Toronto. They're playing a team that's going to be that has not started out the way they wanted to. Then they're in Ottawa, and then you got the Montreal game circled, and then they go to Detroit. 4-game road trip. I think these are all winnable games. Obviously, they're not going to win all 4 because it is on the road, and teams generally play better at home. So it's a tall ask to ask them to go 4-0 on this road trip. But I think if you come home with more points won than dropped, I think that's a good road trip.
No, Chris, I'm going to agree with you. And one of the things that has always been said in sports is the good teams win the close games. And even though the Golden Knights did let Anaheim back in that game Friday night, they ended up winning it in the shootout. And good teams win the close games. And a close one, a tight one in Dallas, as you mentioned, they won that one as well. And thanks to Jonathan Marchessault and a big, huge goal in that game. One guy you didn't mention, and I will not disagree that Jonathan Marchessault is one of the main heartbeats of this Vegas Golden Knights team. And I don't think he flies under the radar, Chris. I think a lot of people understand how good number 81 is across the National Hockey League, and the Knights have paid him handsomely to keep him here because of that. And this guy, I mean, for a small guy, I mean, I don't know that anyone his size and stature plays bigger than Jonathan Marchessault, because he's also a very physical player and doesn't shy away from the physicality at all. But the guy that I'm really impressed with this year, we started seeing him really come into his own last year. But how about Chandler Stevenson, Chris? I mean, no one's even close in points to this guy. He has just been playing complete lights out hockey this entire season. 4 goals, 5 assists in 8 games. How big has Chandler Stevenson really stepping up and elevating his game been this season, especially with the absence of Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty were kind of his 2 line mates last season.
Yeah, I think Chandler Stevenson has kind of ended the debate on whether he was or he wasn't a first-line center. Look, he has been phenomenal to start the season. Look, he scored the winning goal in Game 1. He had a big goal in one of the other games. So, yeah, he is kind of, and I think a lot of people and you know, we the media especially, we kind of debated, look, is Chandler Stevenson a product of playing with Max Pacioretty and Mark Stone, or can Chandler Stevenson do the job on his own? Well, I think he's shut up a lot of the critics who kind of said, well, he's just a product of Stone and Pacioretty. Put anyone in between those 2 guys and they'll be successful. Look, that's obviously not the case, because it hasn't worked for a lot of the guys that had played in between. Cody Glass was a guy who they basically gave him the opportunity, and he couldn't get the job done. Now I think he's still in the AHL with Nashville. But Chandler Stevenson, like I said, he's a guy who has kind of proven to the doubters that he is a really good hockey player. He has a ton of speed, and I think the goal he scored the other night, man, I mean, he's just turned into a really solid NHL center, and he's definitely a first-line guy, and he fits. He is officially, I think, proving people wrong.
I agree, and I love seeing him play this way without those 2 guys, because you're right, he's showing and has proved he's not just a product and a recipient of the benefactor of having 2 great guys on either side of him. He can center a first line, and I think we would see him getting a lot of playing time on any team in the National Hockey League, especially the way he's playing right now. And as you mentioned, the Vegas Golden Knights now 4-game road trip. It starts Tuesday in Toronto. A tall order. I mean, the Maple Leafs, maybe not a great squad, but they've got one of the best players in Austin Matthews in the National Hockey League, and they'll be a formidable foe. And Ottawa, Canada, the Canadians, a nice little trip there, and then of course ending in Detroit, my hometown, and the Red Wings definitely off to a surprising decent start this season as one of the doormats of the National Hockey League the last couple of years, playing much better hockey this year, and it looks like they're a team that is on I don't want to say the rebound and improving, but they are improving. I just don't know how much we'll see them improve this year. But good opponents for the Vegas Golden Knights to go on the road and play. And I agree, Chris, 4 wins is going to be tough to get on this road trip, but I could see them going 3-1 on this trip, possibly even 4-0 if they continue to play tight. But again, they can't have a letdown like they did in the Anaheim game. If they get a nice lead, you've got to maintain that lead. And that's been one of the knocks of the Golden Knights so far this season, is playing full 60 minutes. They're going to have to do that continuously to be as successful as they've been in the past. And last thing I want to talk about as far as hockey goes, last night, I don't know if you got a chance to watch that Boston-Carolina game. What a hell of a game that was. Last night, just incredible how this Boston team, this Carolina team and the Florida Panthers, I think they're 8-0-1 on the season, 17 points, and lead the National Hockey League. Some really good play out of 2 teams that we saw last year had stepped up, and are 2 teams that both, I think, will contend this year to go deep into the Stanley Cup playoffs. Really quickly, as I wanted to move on to UNLV. UNLV played yesterday, and Spence, I don't know if you got a chance to see or listen to the game. I know Mags did. It wasn't pretty. And we didn't expect them to go up to Reno and win that game. I don't think anyone expected them to go up there and win it, but they had been competing in every game they had played to this point. And to me, the only highlights last night really came from wide receiver Steve Jenkins. He had 12 catches, 112 yards. He did have a touchdown. He played well, but the defense giving up that many points is just unacceptable. And again, they're looking like the old UNLV. Marcus Arroyo, his 14th loss as UNLV head coach. I just expected them to play a little bit better, I guess, than they did yesterday. And it's concerning because I don't know where this team picks up a win. A lot of people felt it might be the New Mexico game coming up, or maybe Hawaii when Hawaii comes down. I don't know. New Mexico is on a bye week, and they're coming off their 3rd win of the season, beating Wyoming and really playing really well, shutting them out almost completely defensively. They only gave up 3 points to Wyoming. They get a week of rest coming off of that win, and then UNLV comes to town. I don't know if if that's going to be a winnable game next week for UNLV.
Well, that's the problem, is that we're talking about maybe winning 1 game in the season. That's the state of the program, is looking forward to maybe winning a game. And I mean, you kind of touched on it, and I'll be quick, is, when you watch UNLV, you're like, okay, I don't think they're going to win this game, but I expect them to play at a certain level. And they're going lower and lower in their standards throughout the season. And that is the exact opposite thing that you want to see. You want to see the team improving, or at least playing, baseline how good they were in a few games this season, but that's not happening at all. And they're horrible is what it's coming down to right now.
Well,
yeah,
I think, you look at the way that they had played up until the Reno game. Look, they were blown out against Iowa State. Look, that you throw that out. But every other game outside of the Arizona State game, it was a 1-possession loss. I mean, they have lost 5 games by 1 possession this season. I think at some point they were just gonna hit a breaking point where things were just gonna completely fall off the rails. I don't understand how you don't get up to play the team up north, like how you get blown off the field in that game. And there's some questions about the talent disparity. UNLV's recruited at a pretty high level the last couple seasons. The difference is Carson Strong is a phenomenal quarterback. He's probably going to be playing on Sundays. Whether or not he's, a starter in the NFL is another story, but he certainly has NFL talent. I think the thing is, the most disappointing part for me is it's not that they lost that game, because like you said, I don't think anyone really expected them to go up to Reno and win that game. It's the fact that they were just completely disheveled and blown off the field. And it looked like they didn't even belong on the field with Reno. And that's the part that hurts. I don't know about New Mexico now. I have no idea what to expect going forward from this team. Like Spencer said, when we're looking at 1 win as a potential, way to be happy, when that's what we're looking forward to, will they win 1 game? It's a pretty disappointment, especially, and like I said, the very first pregame show when they hosted Eastern Washington, I'm throwing out year 1. Look, last year was a completely impossible situation. Very similar to what Marvin Menzies went through his first year. But much like Marvin Menzies, the wins aren't there in year 2 with Marcus Arroyo. You would have expected something because he had a full a full preseason, a full spring to get things ready to go with this team. And, at some point you have to find a way to win games because you can't keep losing close games and hang your hat on that. You have to start winning games. I think if they can win 2 of the next 4, and look, I don't think they're going to beat San Diego State, so that really leaves 2 of the next 3 because they're not going to beat San Diego State, and it's going to be very, very tough to go to Air Force and win that game. But you've got to at least win a couple of these next few games to build something going in the next season, because I cannot fathom, as an alum of UNLV, going from a point where they were winning 4 or 5 games a year with Tony Sanchez. And look, you know what? That's not great. But considering where the program was under Mike Sanford and Bobby Hauck, for them to consistently be a 4 or 5 win team and have a shot at a bowl game going into those final 2-3 weeks of the season, that was at least enjoyable. As an alum, to go 0-6, for this team to go 0-6 last year, and now they could be looking at 0-12 this year, 18 straight losses, it just doesn't sit right with me, Brian.
Off the play fake. Jenkins. Oh, nice block. And Jenkins zips into the end zone. Touchdown, UNLV. You
got to be careful out.
One of the very few highlights the game yesterday. That was one of the Steve Jenkins touchdown. But Chris, your point is very well taken. I mean, if that is the benchmark, is winning 1 game right now is going to be considered success for Marcus Arroyo. I mean, I'm banging my head against the wall. I agree with you. Last year has to be a wash, but you still have to look at the play on the field. And I remember last year in that Wyoming game, I just can't forget it. The second play from scrimmage, when, like I said, you could have driven through 2 semi trucks through that hole defensively, when that running back ran for like 65 yards and a touchdown, and Wyoming never looked back after that. Again, that was last season, the shortened season, but this year they look as good as they've looked in a couple of years at times, and at other times they look like the same old UNLV team. I mean, if you want to hang your hat on anything yesterday, cumulatively, Reno only had 22 yards rushing total between all of them, quarterback, everyone, which is pretty surprising. Not one receiver, even though, as Magna mentioned, Carson Strong, huge with 417 yards, 4 touchdowns and interception. But do you know not one receiver had over 100 yards receiving? He spread the ball around really, really well. I mean, got so many people involved. I think altogether, like 10 or 11 players caught passes for Carson Strong. That's how well this guy sees the field, and why you could see what Chris said, Spencer, that this kid could play on Sundays, and I think he will get a shot at the NFL. He really is a good general on the football field, and he is the one thing about Carson Strong, if you've watched this kid over the years, he really is able to make, as Caleb said, at the collegiate level there's 3 passes you must make, at the pros there's 4. He can make all 4 of those passes, and what makes him really special, again, is his ability to see secondary, third, and even fourth options at times. The ability to scan the entire field and survey it like that is what makes Carson Strong special. As you can see, not much of a running game, but throwing the ball all over the football field. And it's going to be a tall order. I'll tell you what, I don't see UNLV, I'll say it right now, beating New Mexico next week. And it could be an ugly game, but I'll tell you, Chris, Spencer, we'll leave it at this. This team needs to play well in these games and needs to compete. They can't let this game, as Magnum said, let this derail their entire season. It's already really bad. It can be putrid if they get blown out and don't compete in these next couple games. I think going to New Mexico, having a good showing, competing into the fourth quarter and maybe to the end of the game is crucial for this team's confidence, for Marcus Arroyo's confidence, because at some point mentally you can just shut down and just start feeling really bad. And as you saw yesterday, their number one weapon, one of the better running backs in the country, in Charles Williams, he couldn't get off the ground yesterday. Figuratively speaking, 30 yards rushing, that is not going to cut the mustard, not going to get it done when your best weapon is held to 30 yards, and way too much pressure put on Cameron Friel to try to run this offense. Not going to get it done. But I mean, you're talking 40-0 at the end of the first half. I mean, that's disgusting, and it shouldn't happen. And we'll leave it alone. We'll see what happens next week. I can't say I'm not looking forward to it, but I am looking forward to one thing, or that I am looking forward to. I'm looking forward to one thing, and that is is seeing how they come back from this game and how they're able to compete on the road again. I almost think it's better for them that they stay on the road next week and don't come back to Allegiant Stadium for a minute and let this team find a way to win a football game or to play better. But not much more I can say about that, but a lot I can say about college football, man. I'll tell you what, Spencer, you've got a highlight from what I thought was a game that completely lived up to its billing. The premier key marquee matchup in college football yesterday in the Big Ten between number 6 Michigan and number 8 Michigan State. I'll tell you what, it is amazing that this game, the way that it was played, the way it went down. But what's more amazing is Jim Harbaugh just unable to beat his the two rivals you have to beat as head coach at the University of Michigan. You've got to beat Michigan State and you've got to beat Ohio State. He can't do it.
With the lead in the ball now. And it's loose! McCarthy fumbled it! Michigan State has it! 2 quarterbacks handle the football. It finally cost the Wolverines.
I'll tell you what, Mel Tucker is doing a hell of a job in East Lansing. I didn't know what to think about this guy when he got hired there, when he was going to be the head football coach, and I'm loving this guy. His value is going through the roof right now. It'll be like another Nick Saban there. People will see this guy's value. He'll be out of Michigan State and coaching in the SEC within 2 years. But Chris, I don't know if you got to see the Michigan State-Michigan game, but what a hell of a football game. And, Jim Harbaugh, man, overcoaching. I think his desire to get that blue-chip recruit McCarthy into the game cost him big time. And, you want to get this freshman in. He's getting a lot of pressure from alumni. He's getting a lot of pressure from boosters. He's getting a lot of pressure internally to put this kid on the field, even though this team is undefeated behind McNamara, and that double-headed monster at quarterback killed him yesterday. When McCarthy put the ball on the ground late in the game, Michigan didn't recover.
Yeah, I didn't get to see the game. I saw the highlights, and I'll be honest, man. I like Michigan State as a program because they're kind of the program that gets forgotten about in the Big Ten, because obviously you have Ohio State, you got Michigan, you've got Penn State. But Michigan State consistently has, going back to the days of Nick Saban, has been a top 15, top 10 program, a lot. So it's kind of cool that, and plus I'll be honest, I know a couple of Michigan State alums, so obviously I like to see that school do well. But it's good to see. I didn't see the game, like I said. I saw the celebrations in East Lansing after the game, and I don't really have much to say.
We don't have a party in East Lansing, Chris.
What the heck was going on there? But for Jim Harbaugh, at some point, you've got to win a big game. You have to win a big game. Like, the thing is, he's been there through a couple of different Ohio State coaches, and they're still a better program than Michigan. And it burns me because I hate Ohio State. And to see Michigan just every single year, they come in with all this hype and they always fall short. It's got to be disappointing if you're a booster, if you're an alum of the University of Michigan, at some point you've got to be asking, is this really the best we can get from Jim Harbaugh? And look, USC never hesitates to pull the trigger, right? Like, USC, they brought in Clay Helton and they touted him around like he was going to be this great savior of the program. They did the same with a couple of other guys. They don't hesitate. Michigan at some point has to win a big game under Jim Harbaugh. Going 10-2, 9-3, that shouldn't be acceptable at Michigan, regardless of who's your coach. I mean, when I was a kid, Bo Schembechler was the coach, and every year it seemed like they were in the national championship discussion. They couldn't wait to run Lloyd Carr out of town. The guy won a national championship. At some point, you have to start asking questions if Jim Harbaugh is the right guy for the job at Michigan.
He's currently 3-9 against the Spartans and Buckeyes overall, with a 3-4 record against Michigan State and an 0-5 mark against Ohio State, and that's just not going to get it done.
It's funny because like I look at John Robinson when he was at UNLV, and his last year He won 2 games. UNLV went 2-10 in John Robinson's last year. You know who they beat in those 2 games? They beat the school up north and they beat BYU. You know what? Those were the 2 biggest wins in John Robinson's career at UNLV as far as I'm concerned, because he beat the rivals. He never lost to Reno. Yeah, you know what? He took them to 1 bowl game, and they won that bowl game against Arkansas here in Vegas. But you have, even if you're not winning national championships, you have to beat your rivals. You can't be 3-9 against the 2 biggest games and the 2 biggest teams on your schedule every year.
No, and that is a fact. And I'll tell you what, he can redeem himself if somehow they beat Ohio State and get that win. That could redeem himself, get a major bowl game, and then we're going to have to win it for Jim Harbaugh to keep his job as good as they've done this year, getting themselves into the top 6 in the country. They lose to Ohio State. I'm telling you right now, Harbaugh's gone next year. If those are his 2 losses, Michigan State and Ohio State, the alumni's not going to care anymore. But I'll tell you, talking about that game, the most amazing thing about that game, Chris, and if you watch the highlights and Google this guy, he is a beast. How about Kenneth Walker Jr.? You're talking about 5 touchdowns yesterday, a career high for this guy. He's the nation's leading rusher, and I am amazed how little he is talked about. When you watch this game, he was a man among men yesterday, just running through him. That final touchdown run of 58 yards was incredible that he had, just bust through everyone. He's a hard guy to bring down. He's elusive. He has absolutely game-breaking speed, and he can run over people. I mean, this guy is the complete package. I think he's going to be a great one at the next level as well. Very, very hard guy to stop, especially when he runs with determination like he did yesterday. It was the first time, which is surprising to me, that these 2 teams faced each other when they were both top 10 rated teams in the country. That last time they did that was like 1964. So I was surprised. I thought they had done that before, but the combination of Peyton Thorne and Jaden Reed, it's pretty amazing. They've been playing together since middle school. Jaden Reed will definitely play on Sundays. He wears Anthony Carter, he wears number 1. I was going to say another guy from Michigan who I like a great deal. That wide receiver for them who also wears number 1, the old Anthony Carter number, is another guy that I think is going to be a great receiver on Sundays. But this Michigan State team, can they beat anyone? I don't think so. I think that they would have trouble beating Georgia. I think they'd have trouble beating Alabama. There may be a few other teams they'll struggle with as well. But hey, they've got to be in consideration, and they are talking about the playoffs. I mean, the bottom line is Ohio State's in front of them, and Ohio State's got a loss, and at the beginning of the season wasn't playing real well. So I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year. It's going to be really interesting. But Michigan State now in prime position to play for their second time, it would be in the college football playoffs, and that would be pretty darn cool. I really like this Michigan State team, and the key is with them too. Aside from having, in my opinion, the best running back in the country, they also have a pretty amazing defense, and when they have to make stops, they do, and they create turnovers. They are really being taught to create turnovers, and they do it as well as anybody in the country. This Michigan State team is really good. I think they're good enough to be a playoff team. I think maybe they're the 3rd best, 4th best team in the country right now in what I see, especially based on their record and playing in the Big Ten, which is a pretty damn good conference. So I like it. I like what I'm seeing, and I think I don't know. I think you MSU might run the table. Big talk right here, but we'll see. Real quick, Spencer, let's time to talk about the World Series, and that's our subject of fact this week.
Fact this. If you don't like the facts, take your ass back to bed. Fact this.
That's a fact. The Atlanta Braves are one game away from winning the World Series. This would make them the first team to win the World Series after being under 500 until the end of the first week in August. The latest by any team ever, again, to make it to the World Series, so they'd be the first team to ever win it that way. The 2006 World Series champion St. Louis Cardinals only won 83 regular season games. The Braves won 88, but to win under 90 games and to do what they've done in the postseason, I would say is pretty spectacular, except the way they finished after, from August through September, them along with the St. Louis Cardinals, the hottest teams in baseball. So it's not super surprising the Braves are here. Their pitching staff is incredible. And one guy on their roster, Chris, Eddie Rosario, I mean, he was the NLCS MVP. This guy just continues to come up with big hit after big hit. Had a couple last night. Some other people got it done as well. But wow, who would have saw this coming when they made the trade for Eddie Rosario a little bit earlier in the season? See there? I don't hear him. Hope we're still going. Spence, go ahead.
Yeah,
What do
yeah.
think?
You guys are still on.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I wasn't sure if you were talking to me or not. Yeah, it's crazy, and it's funny you mentioned that St. Louis Cardinals team in 2006 that won 83 games. What's the common denominator in that St. Louis Cardinals team in 2006 and this Atlanta Braves team? Well, the New York Mets are involved because the Mets melted down and should have beaten that St. Louis Cardinal team in the NLCS in 2006. And this year, the New York Mets melt down after basically leading the division from April all the way up until July, allowing the Braves to really come from nowhere to win that division. I thought their season was over when Ronald Acuna Jr. went down. It amazes me that this team is one win away from the World Series. I hate the Atlanta Braves. I can't stand that team, and it makes me sick that they're one win away from the World Series. I'm one of the few people who isn't a Houston Astros fan who was rooting for the Astros to win this World Series. I can't stand the fact that the Braves are one win away from the World Series. It makes me want to throw up, Brian.
See, with me, it's a completely different feeling. I love Dusty Baker, and I'm happy that Dusty Baker was getting another opportunity at a World Series championship. It's not that I'm a gigantic Braves fan, but I can't stand the Houston Astros. Hey, you know what? Altuve's proving to us he is one of the greatest players pound for pound, his size and stature ever to play in Major League Baseball. He's a bona fide Hall of Famer. He's proving to us that he never needed to cheat to do what he does because he's that good. And the fact that he did cheat and did wear a wire, I can't get past it. I don't know that I ever will. I can't get past some of the guys that use steroids. Some of them, like Pettit, who came out and said, I used them. He was recovering from an injury and he used them to help himself get better and admitted it right off the bat. Maybe I can stand that. A-Rod claims the same thing, that he only used them for one season, again, to help overcome injury. I'm not so sure about that, but the point is there certain things that I can stomach and there's certain things I can't. The Houston Astros were good enough to win the World Series without having to wear wires to steal signs. When signs are, it's completely illegal for base runners to steal signs and transfer them, but not to wear wires. And I'll never forget it. It was disgusting to me. It's repulsive. And the only thing is it's hard for me because AJ Hinch is now the manager of the Detroit Tigers. So I'm torn a little bit there, but realistically, I can't stand the Houston Astros for that reason. So I'm pulling for the Braves, and I hope they get the win. Haven't had a World Series victory since 99. Remember, they had that run for, I think like 13 years where they made the playoffs every year and only got one World Series victory over the Cleveland Indians in that entire run. But I do want the Braves to win the World Series for the simple fact I just can't stand the Houston Astros. Again, I can't stand cheating in professional sports. I know that it goes on in history. We've had plenty of examples of it, but I hate it every time, and I'm always gonna speak against it. And again, I hope we do see the Houston Astros go down in the World Series. I wouldn't mind if they go down in 5 games. I love it when my team's not in it. I always want to see 7 games. I want to see 7 games and the 7th game go into extra innings. In this case, I don't care. I just want the Astros gone from the World Series. And again, I just don't feel that they deserve it still. And they should have the last one taken away. I mean, I'm that adamant about it. But it's going to be a fun last game of the series. And the Astros are the type of team. They're a great team with 2 outs. They are a great team with their backs against the wall. Here they have their backs against the wall. We'll see how they come out. It should be interesting. While we still have time, talking about the S&B, which is silver and black, the Las Vegas Raiders, 5-2 on their bye week this week. They've won 2 straight games since John Gruden has been gone. They beat Denver 2 weeks ago, and last week a big win at home, 33-22, without probably their number 1 star, Darren Waller, and they beat the Philadelphia Eagles in a big win. And I got to ask you both, Spencer, I'll start with you being the biggest Raiders fan there is. How about backup Foster Moreau? People have been talking about this kid since the beginning of the season. I've been hearing his name. I got to meet him briefly at the WNBA at an Aces game. He doesn't look that imposing or anything, and obviously he's behind Darren Waller, arguably one of the top 3 best tight ends in football. But everyone has been saying, wait until this guy gets on the field and do what he can do, show you what he can do. He made some big-time catches. He was the leading receiver in the game, and I really like this kid. 60 yards, 6 catches, a touchdown in basically what was his starting debut in the National Football League. You got to like him, and you got to like the fact the Raiders have hung in there. And with all the controversy and all the focus on them because of Jen Gruden, they've won 2 in a row.
It's been incredible. And I've loved Foss Moreau since they drafted him. I was a huge fan of his. And honestly, like the whole John Gruden thing, bringing in Jason Witten last year was a complete waste of this guy's career because Foss Moreau would probably start on half the teams in the league. That's how talented he is. And that catch he had for that touchdown,
it's beautiful.
It was amazing. It was absolutely incredible. So, the big storyline has been, are the Raiders better without John Gruden? I've been pretty much saying that for a couple of years now. It looks great now. We'll see because there's, the first game after you have all the energy, right? It's like, wow, we got a new coach. We got to play up for this guy. It's like almost like an effect everywhere in the league. The coach wins the next one. The fact that they took care of business and their offenses look so good. And, it just looks like the playbook has opened up. I was so sick of seeing them on 3rd and 1 with the fullback dive. And then on 4th and inches, a fullback dive. They're starting to push it down the field. Derek Carr loves pushing it down the field, as we've seen. And again, he's just been the most impressive player in the Raiders this year, bar none.
Chris, are the Raiders really the best team in the NFC West?
No, they're not the best team in the NFC West or the AFC West. The AFC West, it's going to be the Chargers. They are the best team in that division right now.
What do you think?
Kansas City, they were, it's funny. I had the conversation with someone last week about how quick the window closes in the NFL. And I'm not saying the Chiefs' window is closed.
What do you think?
But
I was asking you, what do you think?
They seem to have been exposed, and it started with Tampa, and they have not recovered from that loss, from just getting their ass kicked by the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. The Chargers look like the best team, from both ends of the football. I love their coach. I like the fact that he's like a guy who legitimately says, you know what, I'm going for it on 4th down from my own 30. If it's 4th and 1, he's got a lot of guts, and I like that. I like Justin Herbert. He looks like the real deal. And look, the Raiders are good. I think they're a playoff team. It remains to be seen. Look, the reality is, coming up after the bye week, after the Giants game, things start to get a little tough schedule-wise for the Raiders. The Bengals are going to come into town, and that's a team that I think they proved last week that they're for real when they went into Baltimore and just absolutely beat the snot out of the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson in that game last week. So the schedule's going to pick up for the Raiders, and we're going to find out, I think, in the next month or so if the Raiders are for real. If they come out of that in good position, I think it's a legit chance that we talk about them as a team that could win the division or and maybe make a run in the playoffs.
That'll be really interesting, especially the way that this season has panned out, when usually you have something that went on like with John Gruden is a major distraction. It upsets the team. It messes them up. And that really bodes the question, because it's amazing some players have actually spoken out against Gruden. You thought, they would just remain quiet. And I mean, most people you think would plead the fifth. They're not. They're saying that it's way less tense in the sidelines, that Gruden was running around yelling at everyone, yelling at his assistant coaches. And it seems like Rich Bisaccia is a favorite. These guys really like him. And you know what's cool about a special teams coach is, again, they see everything. They really get to observe the entire game. And they have a lot more knowledge than people would think. There was an old special teams coach that coached with the Lions and several other teams named Frank Gans, who I used to absolutely love as a special team coach. He was one of the most fun guys to listen to in press conferences when he talked, and it was amazing his knowledge of both sides of the football, not just special teams. Bisaccia, I think, is a guy who can definitely lead this team and will lead this team through the remainder of the season. And if this team continues to play this way, Spencer, should this guy be considered to have that interim mark removed? I know we're speaking, it's only been 2 games. I get it, but is he a guy that if they continue to play like this and seeming to play together, and hell, if you would have told me they're going to be missing Darren Waller and maybe beating Philadelphia isn't that big of a deal without him, but he's arguably the best player on this football team. When you lose your best player, it's tough to compete, and he's such a lethal part of that offense. And yet Foster Moreau stepped in, did a great job. But is all this maybe a reflection of the personality of Rich Bisaccia? Is he helping, make this team win?
Well, the guys certainly like him, so that's a good thing. I think it depends on the coaching carousel, who's a free agent. Eric Bieniemy's got to be priority number 1 for them. If he says no, okay, then you start to consider. I mean, you have the rest of the season. So if they get 9 wins, that's really on the bubble. If they go to 10 or 11, I say, okay, maybe you don't interview anybody and you give this guy the job, because that would be a huge step forward for this team, considering last year. There are two names on the Raiders that I think deserve a tremendous amount of credit right now: Greg Olson and our defensive coordinator, Gus Bradley, because, Gus has transformed the worst defense in the league to somewhere around 15. And that's a task that I never thought I'd ever see. But Greg Olson, Derek Carr had him his rookie season, and he's just kind of stepped in. He's like, we need you to start calling plays now. And gosh, it seemed like the guy was ready a long time ago. John Gruden was calling Spider 2 wide banana every other play. Greg Olson seems to open up the playbook a little bit more, and we're seeing the fruits of the benefits of that.
Yeah, a lot of what Spencer said, I agree with, because I think like you look at
Las
the
Vegas
job that Greg Olson's done
Raiders,
stepping in, and
it was
they're a
pretty
completely
tragic,
different
the
team on the
deal we
offensive
heard
side of
with
the ball.
John Gruden. But I want to say he's 2-0. The Raiders have 2 losses, and those 2 losses are completely hung on John Gruden and the team before Bisaccia. So right now he's 2-0. 9 wins, I'll agree with you, especially in a team. 9 wins is going to be a little uglier than 9 wins in the past, because that would mean you'd have 8 losses, and so that's not that great. But I would say 10 or 11 wins for Bisaccia. And I would also, if I'm ownership, management, talk to the players a little bit. I mean, I know you're not a big fan of Mike Mayock. He may not have a job after this year either, but I think you have to talk to the players and really get their take on Rich Bisaccia, because you want to keep everybody happy. And I think if you talk to them privately, interview some of your key players and say, what do you think of this guy? And really get a feel before you make a move, because you want a team happy, and especially after what just happened, you want a team bonding together. And it seems like in the wake of what happened to Gruden, this team really has unified and united, and they're playing well under Bisaccia. Again, it's way too early to start patting this guy on the back or to start handing him the reins, but I think based on what I've seen, you have to consider it, because this team has played well. The win up in Denver was big. Okay, it's an interdivision rival that has exceeded people's expectations this year. And when Teddy Bridgewater is healthy, that is a tough football team. Teddy Bridgewater can get the job done, and they went up there and beat him pretty handily. Then to come back in a game that could have easily been a letdown game against the Eagles, they won it and did exactly what they were expected to. They never weren't in control in this football game, and that's what you expect them to do. And now they get to go on a bye, and they come back against the Giants. Now, granted, the Giants just had their biggest win of the season last week against the Panthers, who I think we all realize Sam Darnold maybe looked good the first couple of weeks, but he's garbage. I'm surprised. I thought Sam Darnold would have more success, but he's really looked bad the last couple of weeks for Carolina. They're already talking about making moves for another quarterback. But that being said, there's still a big win for the New York Giants, and now they will play the Las Vegas Raiders. And Spencer, I think it's a good matchup for the Raiders, coming off a bye, coming off back-to-back wins, for a chance to win 3 in a row.
Yeah, well, the Giants have been very injured this season, but here's the bottom line of the situation. If the Raiders are going to get to 10 or 11 wins, you can't take losses to the Giants, especially when you lose to a team like the Bears earlier in the season, who look like they're actively falling apart, and they were at the time they were playing the Raiders. So that was like a really bad loss. You can't take too many of those if you want to make the playoffs, especially with that extra game. You got to take advantage of the situation, and very beatable team. And going into the Eagles game, that was a kind of a game that we've seen the Raiders lose historically. When they start winning some football games, they had the letdown. Well, they certainly looked great in that Eagles game. Didn't start off well. They haven't all season, but and scores all that matters, right? So, I think they should beat the Giants, and that would be really sick to see a 6-2 Raiders. I don't know the last time I've seen that.
6-2 with 3 straight wins, starting the season with 3 wins and following it up with 3 more wins. That's 2 3-game winning streaks in the same season for the Raiders. Haven't seen that in an awful long time. Be pretty damn cool. And, I said the premier matchup this week in the NFL was Thursday night, the Packers-Cardinals. It lived up to the billing. Kind of unfortunate. The Cardinals just ran out of time at the end of the game. They didn't really run the time. A terrible turnover at the end of the game, and the Cardinals lose that football game. But I think they showed that they can play with anybody. Green Bay, and I said after week 1, that loss to the Saints, I'm like, man, you don't want to piss Aaron Rodgers off. This guy hasn't lost it. He had a bad game against the Saints. He didn't really practice in the preseason very much. People wondered earlier on in the preseason if he was even going to play for the Packers this year. And now he's got the Packers tied for the best record in the NFL at 7-1. And this is a very dangerous football team, and they win that game in Arizona without their top two receivers in Alan Lazard and, of course, Devontae Adams. And now, granted, Rodgers was 6-0, now 7-0 without Adams, but trust me, they are not a better team without Devontae Adams. That's pretty amazing that Rodgers gets this done. He is the best and most premier quarterback in the National Football League right now. We're seeing some struggles and some growth struggles and also some problems with the offensive line in Kansas City. And I still think overall athletically, I mean, I'm never going to take away anything from the Kansas City Caller. He's the best there is. I mean, we see what he can do, but Aaron Rodgers on top of it, right now, I would take him over Patrick Mahomes the way he's playing this season. And that was the premier game. The only real good matchup that I see this today that I'm looking forward to this afternoon, the Bucks playing the Saints. Jameis Winston getting to play his old team. Something to prove. He's played much better than he's played in his entire career, or I should say he's played more consistently than he's played in his career. The Bucks coming in. I think this is a prime upset for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think my gut tells me the Bucks are going to win this game, but I won't be surprised if the Saints end up on the winning end.
Yeah, the passion is there for Jameis Winston, which is, what you want to see out of your quote-unquote franchise quarterback. But he's just missed one too many throws for my liking to kind of think that he's going to be the guy moving forward. But I think all the credit should go to the coach. I mean, it's unreal.
Sean Payton is one of the best
to,
coaches in the NFL and has been for years, Spencer.
A bad coach, this is like a 2-win football team, it feels like. Well, maybe not that extreme, but certainly they would not be 4-2 right now. He's working an offense with Jameis Winston, who is maturing. But again, like I said, that miss he had to Callaway in the back of the end zone in that Seahawks game, it's just that's what puts it over the edge for me.
Okay, we'll see. It's going to be a good game today. And, of course, there's no more undefeated teams in the NFL, but there's one team without a win still. The Lions are hosting that Philadelphia Eagle team that was in here last week trying to pick up their first win. Did they do it today?
I think if there is well, and that's not true. You can win any week in football. And the thing is Detroit is playing very hard, and you have to appreciate that. They will get a win.
I don't appreciate anything.
I think actually they could get the win today. It's just the game to do it for them.
We'll see. Last thing I want to say, Cade Cunningham made his NBA debut yesterday night for the Detroit Pistons. They beat Orlando 110-103, but he had 2 points, 7 rebounds, and 2 assists. The last time anyone ever shot 2 points as the number 1 overall pick in the NBA. Well, how about Anthony Bennett did that back in his debut in 2013. Shocker that he was the last guy to do it. Cade Cunningham's a much better player. We'll see better play, but 1 of 8 from the field's not going to get it done. A horrible debut and one of the worst shooting percentages ever by a debut of a number 1 overall pick. It doesn't figure it's for the Pistons. Listen, we're out of time. This is Out of Line. I want to thank Spencer, the Wiz Ostrovsky, and of course, Chris Magnum Chapman back in studio. I'm Brian Feldman. We'll be back next Sunday, same time, 8 o'clock. Look forward to talking to you then. Bye-bye.